So I've done a thing, something I'm sure you've already guessed if you've seen any of my last couple of videos. I have decided to go all in with the Alveary and reapproach Charlotte Mason as the foundation for my homeschool. And I want to talk about it with you today. Hi, my name is Brecky and I'm the homeschooling mom of twin 6-year-old girls. We are in first grade, or Form 1A together. I have to get the Charlotte Mason nomenclature down. I also have two older teenagers who are both in high school, and they're publicly schooled the whole way. So I have had a chance to see firsthand public schools in two very different states, as well as now my second year in homeschooling. Today I want to talk a little bit about my decision to join the Alviary as our frame and foundation for our homeschool, why I'm excited, because I'm excited. Even though I spent a lot of money, I'm super excited about everything, and why I am reapproaching Charlotte Mason after I'd had a pretty hard turn off from Charlotte Mason and kind of classical education and that whole kind of conversation. And I want to take you into a little bit of my thought process and my ongoing thought process. And I'd love, even if you are not Charlotte Mason at all, I'd love to be in an ongoing conversation with you about some of the ideas and some of the struggles that I have as a Charlotte Mason inspired homeschooler. So the first thing I want to say is that we are joining the Alviary. As you guys know from the last couple of videos, I did purchase their grade 1 history because I thought it might be a nice introduction to give us our American history stream, and I was right. We've already done 3 or 4 lessons as of the filming of this video. I think we've done the first 3 lessons and we are loving it. It is exactly the amount of hand-holding that I want without being way too much. And that's what a lot of curriculum I found was for me. As a non-projecty kind of person, as someone who doesn't love a lot of crafty stuff, I found myself really overwhelmed by things like the American Girls program that wanted us to do a ton of crafts, a ton of maps, a ton of activities, a ton of extra reading, a ton of videos, and I felt bogged down. I felt overwhelmed by that much choice. I also felt like I was not using the curriculum if I wasn't doing everything. Whereas with the Alviary, it is a really solid foundation with high quality books that I really like, but it leaves a lot of space. It has a lot of breathing room, if you will. The sections are quite short. The idea is that you are only doing about 10 minutes per topic in this grade level with your 6-year-olds. And I actually really like that, because if we do about 10 minutes of a reading and a couple minutes of conversation, really learning how to do narration, having space for conversation, which is what I want. I want a conversation-based curriculum. Then there's room to do all the different things. And so as I discovered doing the first several lessons of both the history curriculum and the literature curriculum, in that last video, I said that they did literature, Bible, and poetry, and that we weren't going, or history, Bible, literature, and we weren't going to do the Bible or the literature. I must have been looking at an old sample, because they were selling the history, literature, poetry, and we're going to be using all of it. I love the history selections, obviously. I actually really like the grade 1 literature selections, which are fairy tales and tall tales alternating back and forth throughout the course of the year. So we're going to be doing that. And that's our plan for this year. I'm not as big of a fan of what they have scheduled for 2nd grade, which is that you do a whole term reading Little Pilgrim's Progress or regular Pilgrim's Progress. We won't be doing that. We'll be doing something else, but I'll talk about that in a different video. But I really like that, and I really like their poetry. They have a grades 1 through 4 poetry program. I just printed that out that I actually like better than what they have assigned just for grade 1. So we're going to be doing that as well. And my plan right now is for us to do this history stream probably 1 day a week, the literature 1 to 2 days a week, and the poetry 1 day a week, and maybe have them on like a loop schedule. I'm still kind of sitting with how I want that to be lived out. What I think I'll do is experiment a little bit for the rest of November and December, and then pick my set schedule and then set that all up to do it fully starting in January. So playing around with it. But I bought the history curriculum, and it was history, literature, poetry. Loved the history and the literature selections. started kind of playing around with what was available, looking at some of the sample syllabi, getting a little bit enamored, having some FOMO. It's real, FOMO is real. And then I had some really thoughtful comments from the very lovely Ashley at Crazy Brave Homeschool. And her kids are a little bit, well, they're kind of, her daughter's older than mine, but her son is actually the same age as my girls. They'd be in the same grade if I hadn't decided to move them up a little bit. And she just really reflected some positive things. She had already joined. She was already using the fuller curriculum and said, here's what you have access to. And so I decided that basically I sold enough books this month as a writer that I could afford to get the membership. And the basic membership is $300. So it is expensive before you buy all the books. It's pricey. I did not get the fancy one with all the syllabird online scheduling. But for that $300, you're getting history, literature, Bible if you want it, poetry as a separate resource, reading lessons if you want to use their reading lessons in the younger years, PE, handicrafts, art, for all 3 terms, and all of these have like videos and extra links, solfa singing, geography lessons, Spanish or French lessons if you want either of those for these younger years. What else? There's like, I'm trying to think of what they have. There are like a dozen different topics that you get access to. Plus you get access to the membership community and their community bookshelf. So I'm really excited for this next year and for joining the Alveary. Now, we are not on their history rotation, and I know they say to just do the history rotation and it comes back around again. But I really, really, really do not like the idea of skipping so much American history. So my plan right now, as it stands, is to do grade 1, the Native American study as they have it, but to do it a little bit quicker than they suggest. So instead of just doing 1 lesson a week for all the 3 terms, we're gonna do 1 to 2 lessons a week as it fits comfortably into our schedule and kind of have it on a looping rotation for the history. That, I think, will have us finishing our history somewhere around early to mid-April, which will leave us all of May and part of June, so about 6 weeks at the end of the year. I would like for us to take that end of the year to do a like Viking explorers study and pull some things from Wildwood and Ambleside, which are influencing me as well. I will make sure that the Alviary and Wildwood and Ambleside are all linked below. Everyone knows Ambleside, I think, if you know anything about Charlotte Mason. But there is another secular free curriculum, a totally free, totally secular, totally Charlotte Mason curriculum called Wildwood, and it's lovely. So please use it as a resource and check out their book selections. They have a really good rationale for the books they pick, and they're intentionally a secular and moderate curriculum. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely use them as a resource. They're very lovely. I wanted a little bit more hand-holding though. Both Ambleside and Wildwood don't have lesson plans. They don't have any hand-holding. They don't break it up for you. They don't have things like captain ideas or questions and prompts to help get you started. And I think I just would feel more comfortable with a little bit of that. Not because I'm incapable, but because honestly, again, I work a full-time job, y'all. So anything I can offload, any work that I can have someone else do to help me, I need right now. I just need right now. So I'm excited to come back to Charlotte Mason. I'm excited to be using the Alveary. It is expensive, so it is a splurge. I sold enough books to be able to afford it. I'm most excited about taking advantage of their art lessons and the videos about that and some of their handicrafts. We won't be doing everything that they have on offer this year. It's just a little bit overwhelming. I really want to do maybe 1 handicraft and 1 art skill that we work on the whole year just for my own capacities. I'm really scared to try brush drawing, y'all. I'm really, really nervous, but I'm excited to start that and to have these video lessons that are a part of the lessons they offer. I'm excited to have a artist study and a composer study where you have all of the material as far as the background of the author, the background of the composer, all of that stuff ready, and you can just add it to your notebook. I will be creating my Charlotte Mason teacher notebook, and once I do that, I will walk you through what that looks like. And I'm really, really excited about it. I'm excited to come back to Charlotte Mason. what actually caused me to make the decision that yes, I'm going to use the Alviary and I'm going to come back to Charlotte Mason after stepping away about, 6 weeks ago, was re-listening to The Modern Miss Mason by Leah Bowden, and then listening to a couple interviews that she's done since. The Modern Miss Mason is a lovely reflection of a homeschooling mom in the UK who was inspired to homeschool after encountering the Charlotte Mason curriculum and just really loving it. But she has a great chapter towards the end about living books. And honestly, I love the fact that she very clearly articulates that we can't get trapped in this idea that the only living books were published 100 years ago, and that she doesn't want to only expose her children to the thoughts and ideas of old books because they have a lot of racism and classism and sexism in them. Not to mention no disability rep, or if there is disability, that person is either the villain, right? Because they're disfigured and they're the villain, or they are to be pitied, right? They have no agency. I don't want that to be the only disability rep my kids see. I don't want the only characters of color my kids see to be caricatures and side characters. I don't want my children to only see white children as the heroes. I want them to see how broad and beautiful the world is. And that is a very important part of my education philosophy. But what I kept finding in Charlotte Mason circles was this sort of litmus testing, this need to be the most pure, the most accurate, the most conformed to what Charlotte Mason taught, and a lot of arguments about twaddle and a lot of arguments against modern books. And I will tell you right now, I'm not about that life. I don't want my children to be Victorian. I don't want them to have a Victorian worldview. It was legal in Victorian England for a husband to beat his wife. It was legal for parents to beat their children. It was legal to pay someone less because of the color of their skin. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want people with handicaps to be institutionalized. I don't want to perpetuate those ideals. I will not be reading any Rudyard Kipling, for example. We did read Rikki Tikki Tavi because I do love it, but we're not going to read The Jungle Book and we're not going to read Just Those Stories because Rudyard Kipling was an out-and-out racist. He literally wrote a poem called The White Man's Burden. I don't know why we tend to elevate these people when we have so many other options. We can read Indian writers. We can read Bangladeshi writers. We can be reading Rickshaw Girl instead of The Jungle Book, right? And read somebody telling their own story. It's important to me that we do that. It's important to me that we humanize individuals and that we recognize that there's beautiful living books being published every single year. The Heartwood Hotel series is a great example. A new one is coming out in this year, of a year of our Lord, 2025. There is a new Heartwood Hotel book coming out, and those are some of the most heartwarming, wholesome, living, beautiful books I have ever read. Even though the Tale of Despero ended up being a slog for us because it was long and it was just a little bit more advanced than my 6-year-olds, the language that Kate DiCamillo uses, talking about lightness and darkness and good and evil and beauty and what are we born to and what are we not born to, oh my goodness, it's theological. I mean, I could do a Bible study on this book. Reading this book in tandem with scripture would be a beautiful thing. And you can't tell me, but that's not a living book. And it was published in the last 10 years. So I just really want to say, from a passionate perspective, a lot of the purity politics of Charlotte Mason drove me away. And this need to do Charlotte Mason just so. And I don't start your kids reading until their 6th birthday. And how dare you start at 5.5? And no, don't teach that 5-year-old who's curious about reading. Wait until they're 6. That's what Charlotte says. And I just think that letter of the law that you see in so many of these communities was suffocating. Some of the politics that I saw reflected in some of these communities was suffocating. Some of the righteousness, self-righteousness that I saw in some of these communities was suffocating. And so for me, finding Leah Bowden and hearing in her this word of freedom of Charlotte Mason does not need you to only read old books. Charlotte Mason does not need you to conform to the letter of her law, but rather the spirit of said law. Oh, it was freeing to me. Realizing that the Heritage Mom is Charlotte Mason-ish. She has a t-shirt that says Charlotte Mason-ish. And I'm like, yes, that's where I'm at. That was very freeing for me. And then discovering the Alveary through the lovely Ashley Murphy at Crazy Brave Homeschool, and her excitement about it, and the fact that, she is spiritual but not religious, and while I don't know what her whole worldview is, I know that we overlap on quite a few things, and that she was excited about it and she felt very good about it, helped ease me into the comfort of saying yes. Now, I don't know that we'll be with the Alviary forever. I've looked at several of the videos going forward, and certainly by middle and high school, some of their book selections are not going to be book selections I can get on board with. I'm not going to have my kids read a biography of John Whitfield, for example, the preacher of the early American period. There are other people I'd rather us read. If we're going to read someone of that period, I'm going to have us read Wilberforce, for example. But I do think that through the elementary years, I am on board with it. And I am really sitting with the idea of the multiple history streams and whether or not I fully feel committed to that. I still like the idea of the classical 4-year rotation, but I also really like the idea of having history in tandem where you can be like, oh, this is what's happening in the ancient world. I'm studying what's happening in early America, and I'm seeing where they're drawing these ideas. I kind of like that because you can discover more. So not sure. I have several years before I have to make that decision, but suffice it to say, we are an Alveary family now. We will be an Alveary family through at least the end of this year. So my membership runs through the end of June. Hopefully I will know by then if I plan on re-upping for the next year and can let you know how it goes. I would love to know if you are Charlotte Mason inspired, if you, like me, had to walk away because of the conversation around Charlotte Mason and not necessarily the actual philosophy of Charlotte Mason. I love the living book philosophy. I actually like a lot of the classical principles, but the lived experience of so many people in those communities was suffocating, and I really didn't like it. But listening to Lisa Bowden, finding some of her resources, realizing that there's more out there than the communities that I'd first encountered, really felt like it gave me, I don't want to say permission, but it helped me to see my way back into what I love the most about Charlotte Mason. And that is that children are born persons. I'm not filling an empty vessel. I'm shepherding a fully formed soul as they mature. I love that. I love the idea of forming habits as a part of our education, because good habits are so helpful, and not having good habits in place is really challenging. I would know. I really like the idea of teaching everything you can through a living book. Just seeing how my kids absorb narrative is really, really joyful to me. And then the idea that our education isn't about a bunch of worksheets and a bunch of little to-dos, but rather deep, rich conversations that are, reading something good, reflecting back on it through conversation. That's what I love. That's why I was a history English double major, right? I would have been a religion triple major if I'd had an extra semester. I would have done it because I love reading good books and then talking about them with people. I was a YouTuber for a while, doing booktube, because I just really wanted to talk about books with people. So that has been my love for almost 40 years, right? 35 years since I could start reading. I've loved to read a book and talk about it. And the idea of building an entire educational philosophy on the belief that reading good books and having good conversations through narration and big, deep conversations seems like the most joyful thing. And to bring my kids into that ongoing conversation about good ideas seems really joyful to me. So comment down below, my friends. Let me know. Are you Charlotte Mason-ish? Are you inspired by the CM philosophy? Are you involved with the Alviary? Are you an Alviary family? Especially if you are a more secular inclined Alviary family, I'd love to meet you and see how you're using the material. Are you someone who is interested in Charlotte Mason, but maybe has been turned off by some of the internet discourse about it? Because that, for me, was a big kicker, was a real big kicker for me. And if you have used a different Charlotte Mason curriculum that is not Ambleside or the Alviary, let me know. What have you used and loved? I would really be curious. I know that the Delectable Education podcast is affiliated with Sabbath Mood. I know, of course, Simply Charlotte Mason is really famous, and I'll be ordering some picture studies from them eventually. But if you have another curriculum that you've really loved that is Charlotte Mason inspired, I'd love to know your thoughts and how you've incorporated it. All right, that's my big announcement. I'm sure you all guessed that I was going to say this, but it is exciting for me, and I will take you along, like I said, when I set up my binder and as I go through some of the books, being mindful of their proprietary information, and I will tell you whether or not it's worth it once you've used it for a while. Okay, I hope you're all doing super well, and until the next video.